Okay. I think that what Patricia's saying is quite honestly reflected or reflects the attitude of a lot of folks in this country who've seen a pretty quick influx of people from all over the world coming to this country. I mean, we have someone from Bulgaria who is here. We have folks from all over. Obviously, the Latino and Asian populations in the LA are big. What you see are a couple of things. One, a lot more people today are speaking languages other than English in places at the grocery store, at the schools, the place. And a lot of folks who have been born here and have always known English are obviously noticing that. That's one of the reasons why I think in a lot of these states that haven't had many years of experience with immigration, that it's become a very contentious issue, because it didn't just, it's almost as if for them it's happened overnight, that all of a sudden there are a lot of folks that aren't speaking English, or at least not speaking it well, and a lot of folks who look different. Maybe some of their cultural activities are different and so forth. And so some people are saying, this is no longer what I was accustomed to. I will say a couple of things. First, I think it's a very valid point. I do, when I, for example, go speak to parents, and I often am invited to speak to some of the LA Unified School parents, especially in the bilingual education programs, I always tell them that the parents have to do a far better job of trying to learn English, because if you're going to be here, you have to learn English. But I think in most cases it's not because they don't want to or they're not trying. I think for the most part it's like my father. He never had time. He was always busy working. My father held down usually more than one job to try, because as a construction worker or a seasonal harvest worker, that's not full-time work. At some point the harvest season ends. At some season the road construction season ends because of the rains. And you got to find something else. And so most of these folks that don't speak English well would love to learn English well. If you go to the adult education classes here in LA, you will find that you can't get in, because the wait list is miles long to get in. So what we have to recognize as Americans who were born and raised knowing English is that there are folks who are yearning to learn English. And I put it very simply to folks. If you're a small child and you are parachuted into a school where you've never been before, and you can't communicate with those kids, when you're on the playground, chances are you're not going to be selected real early to be on that team. Chances are you're not going to find your friends real quickly. And the thing you desire most as that 7-year-old in that school is to fit in. And so let me finish, Patricia. And so what I say is this. Anyone who wants to stay in this country must learn English. And there's no way about it. You want to function right in this country, you got to know English. You want to be able to get good grades, you got to know English. You're going to go to college, you got to know English. Same time, we want them to learn English well. We want them to incorporate our values. We got to give them a chance to be able to do that. There's got to be an avenue for them to do that. One of the things that some of us have said must be in any immigration reform bill is a requirement that those immigrants who wish to stay here learn English. But there will also be a provision that says we'll make available the classes and the facilities for them to learn it. Because you can't smack them over the head and say, you didn't learn English, so get out of the country, if we never give them a chance to figure out a way to learn English. It's a lot more difficult, as many of us know, to learn a new language when you're an adult than when you're a child. One, you've got all these responsibilities on your shoulders. But two, you've ingrained certain things in your mind and in your tongue. I dare many of you who don't speak Spanish to try to say ferrocarril, which is railroad. You're not going to know how to put your tongue the way you need to say that R. And so, ask someone who's of Asian extraction to say an R. There's a lot of issues that once you're an adult, it's tough. But when you're a kid, you can soak it up. But we got to make it possible for them. So I agree with what you said, Patricia. We do need to make sure that folks, if they want to prove to us that they want to stay, they better learn about this country and learn it right. But at the same time, we have to recognize that when we're paying them $7, $8 an hour and working at more than 1 or 2 jobs, it's tough for them to figure out a way to do that. I know you keep wanting to say something. Let me get you back to the mic. Go ahead. I know I'm trying to keep people short, and we're about... And this is important.
I know, but also, when I pass by the welfare office, even though they're illegal, but they're putting their children on the welfare rolls, I'm paying for it, so they're still getting money. You and I, we're still paying for it. They're still getting money from us by their children being on the welfare roll. And I know that's true because I taught Head Start for 40
let's not get into it. But let me, Patricia, let's end it at this. Let's end it at this, and let me, and I think especially for people who have felt the stain and the pain of discrimination in the past, I think it'll be easier to understand what I'm about to say. In this country, if you're born here, you are born with the great right to be an American citizen. And so, if there's anyone who qualifies for a benefit, it's because that person, adult or child, is a U.S. citizen. No immigrant adult, including legal immigrant adults, are entitled to any welfare benefits under the law. If you know of anyone who's an immigrant who is receiving welfare benefits or any type of benefit, you have every right to notify the authorities. Now, I get a lot of folks who complain about people who are living off of the government, but I find very people who've reported those individuals. And so what I say is this: I want to be careful, because I know that there is a deep concern by Americans that there are immigrants who are coming in and using the system and taking the benefits. I will never deny a child a schoolroom, health care, anything to make sure that young child, regardless of his or her circumstance, has a chance to be a productive adult. I think it's not only offensive to me, I think it's irrational for us to not let any child be able to grow up and do something good. But that doesn't mean that the law is where I am. The law says if that child is an immigrant, especially undocumented, that child will not qualify for any benefit under welfare. And we should report, you should report that if that's the case. But I guarantee you the chances are those are kids, if you've seen someone receiving welfare benefits who is a U.S. citizen child. Their circumstance in life of being the child of undocumented parents is not of their making. And I am not going to punish a child who was born in this country for the acts of their parents. I'm not going to visit the sins of their parents on them, not me. And this is so, I say this, that is why more than anything else we need to reform our immigration laws so we can get rid of this crazy patchwork system where some do, some don't, some can, some cannot, and make it right so that none of us, especially citizens, believe that anyone is taking advantage of the system. And that way we can figure out who's on the right side of the line and who's on the wrong side of the line. And if you're on the wrong side of the line, you got to get out. You got to get out. And so, I say this to all of those who are of immigrant background. I hope we understand something. Patricia said something in, I think, a very gracious way. She expressed a concern that I've had a lot of folks express to me in very hostile ways. I think part of it comes from her own background about the way she probably decided to express that. And what we have to recognize is that there are a lot of folks who have lost their tolerance in this issue and are ready to go after even kids. And if we don't listen to that message, especially those of you who are immigrant and don't yet speak English, then you do it at your peril, but more importantly, you do it at the peril of your kids. Because and I say our because I'm the son of immigrants, our inability or lack of effort to learn English is going to doom our children. And so everyone who comes to this country has to make some effort. My father learned English enough because he had to make an effort. But what he knows, he can tell you how to lay pipe in English, because that's what he had to do. He can tell a backhoe operator how to run that machine to dig that hole so he can lay the pipe, all in English. But ask him to converse with me well in English about what's going on in Washington, D.C., and he has a tough time. And that's because he never had the chance to learn that level of English. But my dad never, whether in Spanish or in English, asked anyone for a handout. And he worked very, very hard. And so we have to remember that this country is so many. And by the way, as bad as things are sometimes on immigration, as I get some hate mail, I'll get people who say ugly things to me after I make my comments on immigration. As bad as we are, we're probably still better than I think any country I can think of when it comes to handling immigrants. I still am very optimistic that we're going to figure out a way to work this out.